Hello, and welcome to this session on Amazon Location Service. My name is Andre Dufour, and I'm going to show you how you can use this new service to enable your apps with location features. Let's dive right in. So I'd like to go over 4 different things in today's 30-minute presentation. Firstly, I want to tell you about some of the challenges that customers have told us about that they've encountered when they're working with existing solutions for location-based services, or LBSs. Then we're going to go on and we'll talk about Amazon Location Service itself. I will tell you a bit about the service and the features it offers. I will then show you a demo as to how you can actually get started using the new service. And then we'll continue to talk about some of the ways customers in our beta program have been using this to solve their LBS problems. So first, the challenges. One of the difficulties that customers have told me about when they're working with LBSs and onboarding new providers is this notion of adding new providers to their ecosystem. So building an integration with a third party is certainly something that you can do, but it's not as easy an experience as shifting from using, say, the S3 console that you're familiar with to simply another console, the Amazon Location Service console, picking up something that already feels familiar, that's already in the AWS environment, where you've got all your tools and the best practices that you have built up over years. Customers have told us they want a native AWS service that offers LBS primitives. Now also, if your company is anything like Amazon, there's quite a bit to do when you're onboarding a new vendor, for example, a third-party LBS provider. You're going to have to set up new accounts, manage security credentials, gain AppSec approval. These are things that are totally possible to do, but if you're really focused on delivering value to your customers and innovating on their behalf, this is not where you want to be spending your time. The next difficulty customers have told me about when it comes to working with existing LBS offerings is getting great data. Now, if you're experimenting and just building a location-based application that pertains to a small geographic area, you can potentially get away with attaching yourself to a single LBS provider. But customers with national and global footprints have told me that LBS coverage is inconsistent throughout the world, and what worked well for you in Boston may not work as well in Brisbane or in Berlin. You might also discover that you like one LBS provider's point of interest search functionality, but you like the look of someone else's maps better. And so it becomes a very tricky proposition to get the best of everything without building multiple different integrations. Now, we cannot talk about location-based services and location in general without touching on the topics of security and privacy. And customers have told me they're very concerned with the practices that prevail in the LBS market segment. Indeed, they cannot bear to part with their sensitive location information, be it the location of their facilities, their assets, or their personnel. And of course, if you're building an application that has end users, your customers, their privacy, in particular around location, is governed by very stringent regulations in many geographies. And so you have to be very careful, and currently the offerings don't make that easy to do. Historically, LBS offerings have also been a rather expensive thing to use, and customers have told us that this is constraining their innovation. They found it difficult to build applications that could really benefit from the inclusion of a location component and still achieve a positive return on investment. And at AWS, we never like to hear that costs are constraining innovation, and so this is a major theme that was on our mind when we were building Amazon Location Service. And then the final challenge that customers have told us they've experienced when they're working with existing LBS offerings is getting from experimentation to production faster, right? It's easy enough to sort of hack together an experiment or a prototype, but this is an entirely different proposition from building an application that is enterprise ready, that you can go to production with in confidence, right? You're going to need metrics and logs and alarms and instrumentation. You might even wish to embrace, for example, an event-driven paradigm when you're interacting with interesting location events that transpire in the world. None of this is done for you out of the box if you're building a bespoke integration with an external LBS offering. And so this is why we built Amazon Location Service. And we set out to do 4 things. We wanted to make it really easy for our customers to access high quality data. And we have done that by partnering with experts in the field. We're launching with 2 of our trusted partners, Esri and Here, and we enable you to gain access to their location-based services information through Amazon Location Service using a consistent API. And I'll tell you a little bit more about this in a moment. We talked about cost traditionally being an inhibitor to innovation in location. And so we set out to make Amazon Location incredibly cost effective. I'll give you some more details in a moment, but just to whet your appetite, Amazon Location Service, for its usage-based pricing dimensions, is about 1/2 to 1/10 of the cost of one of the more popular offerings out there. And so we really feel that you can lean into this and unleash your innovation. Privacy and security are built into Amazon Location Service from the get-go. I'll give you some more details in a moment, but it should be understood that your sensitive information is protected, making it easier to enhance your enterprise's security posture and protect the privacy of your end users. And finally, we're going to give you a service that makes it easier to have shorter time to market, or shorter time to production. And we do this by integrating with many of the AWS services that you already depend on to achieve an enterprise-grade production-ready application. CloudWatch, CloudTrail, Amazon Event Bridge. These are all tightly integrated with Amazon Location Service, so you don't have to build these integrations as you're moving from an experiment to something that you actually want to take to production. There are 5 different primitives that we offer with Amazon Location Service, and the first one is, of course, maps, which enable you to visualize spatial areas, as well as overlay assets or pins or points of interest or routes on top of the map. The next primitive is places, and this is a set of services that enable you to perform geocoding, reverse geocoding, and search for points of interest. We've also built from the ground up a tracking service that lets you keep track of where your assets are, be it containers, airplane parts, your personnel. As they move throughout the world, their location can be captured and tracked in Amazon Location Service. And this pairs closely with the geofencing service, where you can define spatial areas of interest, for example, a radius around a retail location of yours, or a security boundary around a factory. And when an asset that you are tracking breaches a geofence on the way in or on the way out, an event is emitted to Amazon Event Bridge, which you can then capture in any number of Amazon Event Bridge targets. And then finally, when we move from our preview, which we're currently in, into general availability, we will of course have a routing service, which lets you determine the optimal route from point to point, including multimodal transport. So let's dive in a little bit deeper on this notion of making it easy to access high quality data. I told you that we're partnering with 2 companies who are experts in this space, Esri and Here. And one of the things that's actually quite unique about Amazon Location Service is we let you access their data using a consistent API. And so switching from Esri to Here as you're experimenting to understand which of these 2 might work best for your given use case in your given geography is as simple as making a parameter change. You have an API contract with Amazon Location Service, which in turn serves you up data from Esri and Here and future data partners that we may add using a consistent approach. And so as you're transitioning between providers, you don't have to redo all your business logic, you don't have to create any new integrations, don't need to onboard any new vendors or manage any different security credentials. You have a relationship with Amazon Location Service. And so this really makes it simpler for you to achieve global coverage, take advantage of new data sources as we add them, and lower the cost of experimentation. So let's talk a little bit more about Esri because we are so excited to be partnering with them. Esri is a leader in the GIS space. They also have location intelligence and mapping software that helps companies achieve better business and operational results. And they've been doing this for decades. They were founded in 1969. Esri software is deployed in more than 350,000 organizations worldwide, including 90 of the Fortune 100 companies, all 50 states in the US, and half of the countries around the world. Esri provides us with geocoding services, maps, and places data, and we are so excited to be partnering with this leader. Additionally, we are partnering with Here Technologies at launch, and Here has been a longtime AWS customer and a trusted technology partner. Here is known particularly for high data quality, and one of the reasons for that is they validate each data point 2,000 times before they publish it, and so you can be assured that the location data is accurate. Here also believes, as we do, that location data freshness is of paramount importance. As soon as you write location data to disk, it starts decaying in its usefulness because it's no longer as fresh. And this is why Here, every single day, collects 28 terabytes of telemetry in order to keep the data fresh. They've mapped more than 200 countries, and they are used in navigation in millions of vehicles worldwide. We're so pleased to be offering customers access to Here data through Amazon Location Service. Now, I made a claim earlier that Amazon Location Service is cost-effective. Let me now prove it. So this table here shows a number of dimensions that you would consider if you were building a back-end location-enabled application. And what we're doing is benchmarking this against another common US-based LBS provider. So in the first row, we see map tiles. We will sell you these for 4 cents per 1,000 map tiles, which is less than half the cost you would pay if you were using this other provider. Our forward and reverse geocodes are 1/10 of the price, and so you really can lean into this primitive and start to build applications that previously would have been cost prohibitive. We also give you the opportunity for a nominal fee to store and reuse the computed results of geocodes. Other providers force you to call their API every single time you want to use that result and pay for the privilege. As I told you, we've built tracking and geofencing into this service from the ground up, and we will sell you that on a per API cost. So you can just use the service. It's a managed offering available for you. If you're going with another provider, sometimes this is left as an exercise for the reader. You have to build it from the ground up, tracking and geofencing using databases and message queues and event buses. We really would prefer you to just use a managed service so you can get on with the business of innovating on behalf of your customers. Now, customers who are performing asset tracking or mobile asset management, which is optimizing the routing of mobile assets, have told us that many times they prefer the predictability of a per asset per month price with a bunch of transactions included, as opposed to paying on a usage basis. And so shortly we will be announcing 2 plans, one for asset tracking, one for asset management, that give you exactly this pricing predictability, a fixed price per month per asset, and we'd like you to use these 2 plans for these types of use cases. So overall, the theme here is to make this service incredibly cost-effective so that you can unleash your innovation and build the location-based applications you've always wanted. Now, I touched earlier on the theme of privacy and security, and I'd like to give you a couple of facts about Amazon Location Service. Your tracking and geofencing information never leaves your AWS account unless you take an explicit action to move it out. Equally, it is constrained to the region in which you are using the service. And this is because we take the position that your data is yours. It is not ours, and it is not anyone else's. Accordingly, our licensing terms don't give Amazon, nor any third party, the right to sell your location data or to use it in order to perform advertising. And if you're a little bit familiar with the LBS space and some of the players that operate there, you understand what a big deal this promise is. With Amazon Location, your sensitive location information is protected, your end user's privacy is protected, which makes it much easier for you to improve the security posture of your enterprise and to meet your regulatory obligations. Now, I told you that Amazon Location helps you get to production more quickly, and the way in which we do this is with a bunch of built-in integrations to other AWS services. To name just a few, you are getting integration with Amazon CloudWatch, metrics, logs, alarms, right out of the box. This is instrumentation you would otherwise have to build. Equally, we give you integration with CloudTrail, so API calls are logged, which makes it easier to meet your auditing requirements. And then finally, we're natively integrated with Amazon EventBridge, so when events of interest transpire in the real world, such as an asset breaching a geofence boundary, we drop an event for you on Amazon EventBridge, and you can catch it with any of the normal EventBridge targets. So you could process it using some Lambda code, you could run a backend workflow using AWS step functions, you could direct the event to Amazon Pinpoint and reason over a campaign that you've configured in order to do location-based customer engagement. And so all of this is meant to speed the time from experimentation to production by reducing the amount of undifferentiated heavy lifting that you have to do in building these integrations. All right, so why don't we have a quick look at a demo and how you can get started in the Amazon Location Service console.
Here we are in the Amazon Location Service console. Let's get started. The first page that's presented to us is the Explore page, which is a great place for new users to go to familiarize themselves with the different concepts introduced by the service. One of these is, of course, the map. And panning around this map or zooming in can give you a sense of the experience that your end users will have when they're interacting with slippy maps that render in your application. The next concept is the place index. A place index is a resource that you use in order to perform geocoding, reverse geocoding, and point of interest search. So for example, if I search for Amazon spheres, I can see that the Amazon spheres are indeed at 7th and Lenora in downtown Seattle. And I could explore that neighborhood a little bit if I wanted. And what we're going to do now is actually create a geofence around the Amazon spheres. Remember, a geofence is a spatial area that you're interested in. And when resources that you are tracking breach that geofence, an event will be emitted to Amazon EventBridge, which you can then catch in any number of different targets. So we're going to go ahead and move over to the geofence collection area, and I'm going to draw a single geofence, a nice big one, around the spheres, closing the polygon by clicking on the first point. And here we have our geofence around the spheres. And what we'll be simulating in this Explorer area is a vehicle moving down 7th Avenue, entering the geofence, at which point an event should be emitted, continuing its path along 7th Avenue, and exiting the geofence, at which point a second event should be emitted. All right. Now in the real world, of course, these would be real devices of yours with our SDK embedded, emitting location update events into a tracker, which are then assessed against a geofence collection, and any breaches will result in events being emitted to Amazon EventBridge. But this Explorer area gives us a neat little way of simulating this to become familiar with the concepts. So let me grab a bus and start clicking my way down 7th Avenue. Every time I click here, a location update is emitted from this simulated device into the tracker and assessed against the geofences. Okay, probably going down 7th Avenue the wrong way because everything is a one-way in Seattle, but in any case, I have now breached my geofence, which was around the spheres, and I'll just keep going down 7th. I've probably exited the geofence at this point. And what we would be expecting to see in Amazon EventBridge is two events, the enter and exit event. So let's have a look at Amazon EventBridge. I've created this rule called catch geofence breach. It is looking for events from AWS Geo, which is the signature for Amazon Location Service. And I have narrowed this down to geofence events. And I could be doing any number of things with these events. I could be sending them to a Lambda function for processing. I could direct them to an SNS topic as a target in order to send someone perhaps a mobile push notification. I could be sending these events to Amazon Pinpoint to be assessed against a campaign in order to perhaps do some location-based customer engagement. In this particular case, I am sending the events to a CloudWatch logs group. So let's go have a look what we see in there. This is my log group. There was nothing in it previously. And if I refresh, I see my 2 events. This is the first one. And expanding that, we see that it is from AWS Geo. It's an enter event. I can see the geofence ID that was breached, which device actually breached the geofence, the time at which this occurred, and the position where the breach was detected. And so you can imagine this working very nicely for asset tracking scenarios, also for security scenarios to understand if your assets are or are not where they should be, as well as location-based customer engagement. So let's go have a look at the second event, just to show you that this is indeed the corresponding exit event when our simulated bus left the geofence. Now let me show you how to interact with some of this programmatically. Here's a little HTML file. Most of this is boilerplate, and we happen to, in this case, be using the Mapbox.gl renderer, which is some open source software that you can use to render maps. And what the HTML file is doing here is just simply embedding a map in a web page. And in a typical scenario, you will want unauthenticated users on your web page to be able to access the map. And so I have specified a Cognito identity pool that I pre-created that allows unauthenticated users access to read my map resources. This is in the US East 1 region. And the only other thing I really need to change or verify is this particular highlighted area, which specifies the style descriptor for the map. So this is specifies the attributes that will dictate how my vector map is rendered. And when I was in the Explorer area, an explorer.map map resource was automatically created for me. And so this specification here is correct. And if I were to actually load up that HTML page, we can see that this is indeed the map that I was interacting with earlier, Vancouver and surrounding areas. I also want to show you a second map that I created. This first map uses styles from our partner Esri. The second one has a slightly different visual treatment from our partner here. Again, downtown Vancouver. This one is interesting because if I zoom in a little bit, I can actually see 2.5D building footprints, which gives you a different visual treatment that can be useful for certain types of applications. And so there are many different style options for you to choose from, depending on the lighting conditions that prevail where you're showing the map or the type of application you're interested in. The next thing I want to show you is a little bit of Python code. And I am using this to perform a geocoding request. So here again, I'm using my same Cognito identity pool. I am going to be searching for the Eiffel Tower. And the only thing I need to be a little careful of here is I need to specify a places index against which to direct this query. Place indexes are resources you create in Amazon Location. One was automatically created for me called explore.place when I was interacting in the Explorer area, so that's what I'm going to use in my post request. And if I just go ahead and execute that, I searched for the Eiffel Tower and I get information back about it, reminding me that the Eiffel Tower is indeed in France, in Paris in particular, and I get the postal code and a bunch of other useful geocoding information in this handy little JSON document. So that's a quick overview of the Amazon Location Service console.
All right, I hope that demo captured your imagination. There are so many use cases that we can accomplish with Amazon Location Service. Customer engagement is the idea of connecting with your customers in a way that enhances their loyalty to your brand and to your products. And Personalization is one of the features that enhances customer engagement, and it turns out location is an extremely effective form of personalization. Think about it. You have a retail location, and you'd like to offer special invitations to customers to come in and experience your products. This is going to be much more effective if you send your special offers to customers when they are in close physical proximity to your retail location than if you send those offers when they're at home on their couch or brushing their teeth before they go to bed. And so we actually saw kind of an example of location-based customer engagement in our demo just now when the bus was traveling down 7th Avenue. We could potentially have sent a mobile push notification to customers who were waiting at a bus stop when the bus breached geofences that were in close proximity to that bus stop, letting the customer know that they should get ready for their transit to arrive. This is an example of location-based customer engagement. There are many more. We also saw how visualization can apply in the demo with striking visual treatments, as well as the ability to, for example, overlay a route onto a map directing customers to your retail location or to your business. You can even do fancy things like create color-coded maps known as choropleths in order to show the variation of a particular variable across geographies. Now, asset tracking and delivery are two additional use cases that, of course, come to mind when we're talking about location-based services offerings. Keeping track of where your assets are, understanding where your delivery vehicles are, and reasoning over those to issue real-time dispatch commands, or retrospectively looking at it to perform optimization or perhaps auditing. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into the delivery and asset tracking use case with a customer example here. So Singleton Solutions is a company that builds a product called Mobilelog. And Mobilelog is effectively last mile as a service in the cloud. And it helps businesses track their mobile assets, view dispatches on a map, and send orders to drivers. Now, Mobilelog participated in our beta program, and they achieved some pretty exceptional results. So using Amazon Location Service, they were able to introduce a new feature called event-based geofences, reacting using an idiomatic, event-driven programming paradigm when interesting events transpired in the physical world, such as a driver arriving at or leaving a location defined by a geofence. And so they could catch those events and react to them, for example, in Lambda functions. They were also able to consolidate a lot of their location-related infrastructure that had been across multiple clouds onto AWS and retire a bunch of bespoke microservices that they had built and simply lean into those offered by Amazon Location Service. And all of this enabled them to reduce their development cost by 50%, and their total overall cost savings are in the order of 30 to 60%. Some pretty incredible results. Let's have a look at their high-level architecture. So you're looking at the central column here, which is Mobilelog, and you can see they have a web dashboard which enables customers to see the location of assets and how dispatches are taking place. And this is, of course, powered by Amazon Location Service Maps. Customers' legacy systems, or any systems really, can interact with Mobilelog's APIs in order to issue their dispatch requests, but also do things like geocoding and reverse geocoding and point of interest search using Amazon Location Services Places API. Now, the heart of this whole application is the Mobilelog driver app, which is emitting in real time location updates into Amazon Location Services tracking system. These are assessed against geofences, and when a driver arrives at or leaves at a location of interest, this information is sent to Mobilelog's real-time database and can then be pushed onwards to customers in the form of notifications, either SMS or email. And so this is a tidy little architecture. It's modular, it's extensible. It's enabled Mobilelog and Singleton Solutions to innovate on behalf of their customers more quickly than they were able to in the past. And they've also achieved 30 to 60% cost savings. Now, Amazon Location Service is available today in preview. It's in 5 AWS regions in North America, in Europe, and in Asia. You don't have to sign up for the preview, just please go ahead and use the service. Once the preview period ends, we also have included a generous free tier with 3 months worth of the usage you will need to build a prototype and get an experiment going and start to integrate location into your applications today. Thank you so much for your attention today. We'd appreciate it if you took the opportunity to complete a survey at the end of this session. Thank you so much again. It's been a privilege.